You're listening to the Screeners Podcast Network.
From the big screen to the small screen and everything in between, this is the Screeners Podcast, where all media is appreciated, but none is safe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Screeners Podcast. My name is Daniel.
This is Chad.
I'm Britton.
And we have a special bonus episode for you. The 90th Academy Award nominations were released this week. They were released on Tuesday. We're recording this on Friday. And we have some reactions. We want to talk through the nominations, snubs, surprises, everything in between, and kind of analyze a few of the top races. So that's what we have in store for you. Are you guys ready to dive into these nominations?
Oh, yeah.
Ready to do it. Ready.
Fantastic. All right, so first and foremost, we have there weren't too many huge surprises with the nominations. We had The Shape of Water leading with 13 nominations. That was fairly expected. Dunkirk had 8, Three Billboards had 7, and it just kind of goes on from there. I'll go ahead and read just the Best Picture nominees here. In alphabetical order, we had Call Me By Your Name, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, The Shape of Water, and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. So those are kind of the major contenders, the Best Picture nominees.
Hey, wait, Daniel, that's not all of them. Surely not.
That's it. That's all of them.
Oh, okay.
I'll
wait.
What's missing? What's missing, Chad?
I believe we know what's missing, Daniel.
Yes.
It's the Florida Project, but I'll get into that later.
Project.
Sorry, we'll get into that later. Spoiler alert.
Well, there's no harm in mentioning it as much as possible. It is a travesty. The Florida Project got exactly one nomination, and that was for Willem Dafoe. Huge bummer. Huge bummer in every respect. But we will get to our snubs and surprises. This has been a really contentious Oscar season. It's just been really a season with no frontrunners. Everything has just been kind of very even all throughout. We've definitely gotten a little clarity in the past few weeks, especially with these nominations. We got a lot of clarity and some of the guild awards that have happened. So things are shaping up, but it's still a little bit of anybody's game. We published an article to the Screeners Podcast blog, which, by the way, if you're not reading the Screeners Podcast blog, you should follow us on social media, on Facebook at the Screeners Podcast, or on Twitter at ScreenersCast, and we post these articles. Britton's going to be writing a lot of these articles for us. We're looking forward to seeing the content that he comes up with. It's screenerspodcast.com. Make sure you stop by, read the blog. We got reviews, all sorts of stuff on there. So, as I was saying, we published an article there about lots of stats and trivia from these nominations because it's a crazy, kind of a groundbreaking year in a lot of respects. Did you guys get to kind of look at some of those stats there?
I did. It's a lot of firsts, which I think is when we get in our snubs, I think a lot of that brings clarity to kind of the new quote unquote Academy voters and what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's for sure. And what Chad's referring to there with the new Academy, in the past couple of years, they've really invited a huge new crop of members into the Academy, and so we're kind of now starting to see their influence, maybe a little bit less of the kind of old guard, more of this new crop of voters. So it's kind of cool. Just a few of those random ones. Greta Gerwig is the 5th ever woman nominated for Best Director, and Jordan Peele is the 5th ever black person nominated for Best Director. Both of those, that's awesome. First ever female cinematographer, Rachel Morrison, for Mudbound.
And well-deserved.
Yes.
Well-deserved. That's a gorgeous movie.
Yes. So that's awesome. And that was the last category, other than Best Actor and Supporting Actor, that had no female nominees ever. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of cool stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into kind of our snubs and surprises. Chad, did you have any major snubs you wanted to mention?
I do. I have 3 snubs, and I won't give them all in a row, but I rank them in the ones that make me the least angry up to the ones that make me the most angry. And I should just say right at the beginning, it's very difficult in this world that we live in 2017 to summon real quote-unquote anger over the Academy Awards. But I love the Academy Awards, and I love film, and it's my passion, and so I do get a little caught up into it, even though truly it's just a big marketing machine, but beyond that,
no, it's great.
Yeah, it is great. I know you love it. I don't want to offend you, Daniel. But my first snub is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but I think it's a clear snub. And I'll be honest with you, it's the James Franco not being nominated for Best Actor for The Disaster Artist. I think his performance is magnificent and clearly one of the best 5 of the year. Now, the reason I think it's somewhat controversial, obviously, is because right now he's a social pariah, deservedly so. And so I'm not going to get into all that other than to say I understand why he wasn't nominated. But I think the fact that the Academy is getting somewhat selectively moral just kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. And the bigger issue I think I have with this is Denzel Washington may be my favorite, if not, he's definitely in my top 2 or 3 favorite actors. I mean, he's just a force of nature in everything that he does. One of the greatest actors of my lifetime in his generation, no doubt about it. But in this case, I honestly think it's a little bit condescending to nominate him for that specific category, because I just don't think, and again, these are just my opinions, I don't think that performance is award worthy. And honestly, if you were to ask him, I don't think he probably does either. Fences last year, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt. A magnificent classic Denzel. This one in Esquire, it's just not. And so to me, it feels as if, again, we're confronting the hashtag Oscar So White controversy, and that's fine. We should confront that. But it feels to me almost condescending, like a consolation prize, because it was painted into a corner where they felt like they just couldn't nominate Franco. So that kind of bothers me a little bit.
I agree with you for the most part. Obviously, I totally agree. Franco's performance is easily one of the best of the year. It sucks that he appears to also be a pretty skeevy dude, so that
no doubt.
That sucks. And it's like you said, rightfully so, he should be a pariah for this community. And so I'm on board with him not being there. If that's what it takes to have change in Hollywood, even if it means not nominating the best performances, I'm okay with that. I disagree a little bit with Denzel being there for the whole Oscar So White thing, because they already had Daniel Kaluuya. I think Denzel is there because, honestly, this was a super weak category this year. Other than Denzel, I agree. Denzel's performance is not nomination worthy, in my opinion. But the only other options were Jake Gyllenhaal, who definitely deserved a nomination.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is that I think Jake Gyllenhaal's the slam dunk other choice.
Oh, sure.
Here.
Yeah.
He is, but that movie was so small. It went I forget what studio was behind Stronger, but they did a horrible job with the campaign and release strategy. So
they're just trying to be more like Netflix with every passing month.
Yeah, just don't advertise.
Just following
anything.
the lead. Yeah.
Exactly. And then other than that, you got Tom Hanks for The Post, who was good, was very solid, but
and better
also,
than Denzel. He's better.
I
than
agree.
Denzel.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying it's not like there's, other than Franco, it's not like there's one person you can point to and be like, how did you not nominate this person?
Agreed, and I'm not outraged about it at all. That's why it's the lowest anger on my thing.
Yeah.
I think that if I'm in a and again, I am 100% behind the Oscars So White and the need for inclusion of people of color across the board. I am. But I think what happens in this scenario is not devaluing Denzel, because, like I said, he's one of the greatest of all time. But if you're an Academy voter and you're looking at Tom Hanks or Denzel or Jake Gyllenhaal, and all things being somewhat equal, you go with Denzel because this is one of the things that they're confronting right now. So that's all. That's all I mean by it.
Sure.
I was just say not to pile on to Denzel, because obviously he's one of the best to ever do it. But I kind of follow the voting metric that the NBA has, where if a team is under 500, I'm not like last year. The Thunder were barely a 500 team, and Russell Westbrook won MVP. I think if you are truly the best in what you do in a category for an entire year, the team or the art that you're doing should reflect that. And I just don't think that particular movie was good enough to justify him being the best for this year.
Sure, and a lot of people, like Chad said, you mentioned the selective outrage. I can't disagree. I mean, a lot of people are pointing to Gary Oldman, who there have been many allegations against him of spousal abuse and things like that. So, and he, spoiler alert for the rest of our episode, but he's kind of a lock for a win here. So people are certainly pointing to that. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. Maybe we still have quite a while until the awards. We got, I think, something like 40 days until the awards, so things could really shake up here as people have plenty of time to write articles. So
True.
So we'll see what happens. Britton, did you have any snubs or surprises you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I think my biggest just surprise, like Chad was saying, just from a lowest outrage level, quote unquote outrage, would be The Shape of Water not being nominated for Best Visual Effects. With it being such a, such an up and down contender, it was expected to get the 14 nominations and only got 13. I was surprised that visual effects is the one it missed in.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was kind of a lock for the whole Ex Machina, category or a slot in that category because it had that low budget. Del Toro was making such a big, and the awards campaign was making such a big deal of the fact that this was an under $20 million film. I mean, for the way it looks, that's insane. That's insane. And so I really thought it was locked for that category. I honestly thought it was going to win that category.
Especially with the entire story. I mean, obviously all of the visual effects, whether it be Blade Runner or Star Wars or whatever it may be, revolve around those effects. But with The Shape of Water so heavily relying upon that relationship and upon the emotional stakes there.
Yeah, you have to buy that relationship. And the fact that Kong Skull Island was nominated, which is fine. That movie's fine.
I love that movie.
But Shape of Water is, if you don't buy that central relationship, then the entire movie doesn't work. So,
and it could be a matter of quantity. I mean, if you're looking at the nominees here, Blade Runner, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Kong Skull Island, Star Wars, War for the Planet of the Apes, I mean, think of the sheer quantity of visual effects that are in those movies as opposed to Shape of Water. And I'm not disagreeing with you guys.
That's
just kind of...
That's fair, yeah.
But I also wouldn't feel bad about replacing Guardians of the Galaxy with Shape of Water, honestly. Now, Blade Runner and Star Wars and War for the Planet of the Apes, sorry, those are in. There's just no doubt.
Yep, I agree. I think War for the Planet of the Apes is coming for a win there. I think those movies are very beloved. So for me, one of the snubs you guys haven't mentioned, maybe I don't want to spoil your guys' lists here, but probably the biggest snub outside of the Florida Project not being here, but the biggest snub that people are pointing to is Martin McDonagh for 3 Billboards missed Best Director. That is a shock, very huge. I can't imagine. I don't understand how he missed there, but to me that kind of. Doesn't shut the door on 3 Billboards winning Best Picture, but that was a huge blow to their Best Picture kind of snowball. So really, really surprised there that Paul Thomas Anderson kind of snuck in his place, which I'm not mad about because I think Phantom Thread is great. But I was just very surprised to see Martin McDonagh miss.
It's almost unheard of. I mean, Frances McDormand is nominated, Woody Harrelson is nominated, Sam Rockwell is nominated. It's nominated for original screenplay. And he didn't get a director nomination. It's insane.
Very surprising.
I don't understand it at all. And PTA is great, but man, I don't know. I have a hard time with this one. I'm just shocked that he's not in there.
Yeah, and Paul Thomas Anderson didn't get a screenplay nomination. It only got, if I'm not mistaken, for above line categories, it just got director, picture, and actor. Outside of that, I mean, it got some costume and stuff, but no screenplay. So that was a huge surprise. Very weird.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
I don't believe we're quite in Argo territory, though, where it's such an outrageous snub that it's going to propel them to a Best Picture win. I really do not think we're there. So I think it's just going to be like, hey, they didn't like the movie as much as we thought they did.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Very interesting. Chad, anything else you want to mention?
Well, my number 2 of 2-level anger was actually that one. It was McDonagh. So that'll give me rein to go to my number 3, DEFCON 4 or DEFCON 5, which is easily the Florida Project not being nominated, not just for more things. Take everything else out. Take the fact that Mooney, the character of Mooney, played by Brooklyn as a Prince, should have been nominated. But take that off the table. The fact that this is not nominated for Best Picture is like one of the great travesties of the Oscars. I just cannot, for the life of me, understand it. So take my love of the picture out of that, because as we've already talked about and we did in our top 10 episode, Florida Project is my number 1 film of the year. It moved me so significantly. I love it with my entire heart. So let's take me out of the equation. I would think that just in general, the critical consensus just universally would be that it's superior to, at a minimum, Darkest Hour, and probably The Post, and maybe Phantom Thread, that's kind of iffy. Now, obviously, for me personally, I think it's better than all the nominees because I think it's my favorite. It is my favorite movie of the year. So that's why I just have a real problem understanding how in the world was this movie not nominated. It befuddles me because I can't put my hand around it. It seems like it's an Oscar bait kind of film coming off of Tangerine. Sean Baker he has a lot of heat and a lot of attention around him. I don't get it. I don't know how it didn't get nominated.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on that. I am 100% with you. It's a travesty. So sad. It was my number 2 movie of the year next to Lady Bird. But it's a masterpiece, clear, plain and simple. It's funny, the movies you mentioned that it seems like it's clear it's better than, Darkest Hour, Phantom Thread, and The Post, are all movies that would directly appeal to an older crowd. And so even though we said there's this new crop, the old guard is still there, and they still have that's how Darkest Hour, frankly, has a Best Picture nominee. It is almost only because of the older crowd, because it didn't get that many other nominations outside of that. So, and I think the Florida Project, love it as much as I do, I think is a movie that wouldn't appeal to the older crowd, because it's like it's kind of crude and in your face, and I love it.
And there's not a traditional plot; it's just kind of aimless. Yeah, you're right.
So I think that's how it happened. And then on top of that, I don't know if this played anything into it, but A24 also had Lady Bird in contention, and so maybe their campaign wasn't as they focused all their attention on trying to get Lady Bird Best Picture, kind of forgot about Florida Project a little bit.
They should have flipped them.
I don't know. Well, I disagree with that, but
thank you, Brenton. Thank you. I was going to leave it alone.
But Lady Bird always was the one that was garnering much more attention and had a better shot at winning Best Picture and things like that. So I maybe that didn't play into it. I don't know. A24 has had great success with their campaigns the past 2 years. Won Best Picture last year, so they obviously know what they're doing. But
it just breaks my heart a little bit because I think that work is such a beautiful work. And one of the things that the Oscars can do is bring much-needed attention to unseen films. And I think there is an audience for this movie that would be profoundly impacted by it that now will not be because it's not going to get really a lot of attention. Yeah. So it's just a bummer.
I agree with you. Every year, whenever the Oscar nominations are announced, people know how much I love the Oscars and all that, of course. And I always have people who text me and say, "Hey, have you seen this movie that one of the ones that got a bunch of nominations?" And I got a couple texts on Tuesday morning saying, "Hey, have you seen The Shape of Water? What do you think?" and all this stuff. And I wish they were asking me about the Florida Project.
Yeah,
instead.
No doubt.
Oh well, I'm as sad as you guys. Britton, any more snubs?
Yeah, I keep rotating between a couple, so I guess I'll just kind of loop them all into one. It's all in the animated feature category. I'm always a sucker for a good animated film still at this point. I love them. They're great, especially the ones that are more, deeper than you would expect for an animated movie. So that brings me to my first one, which would be Coco. I think that under Florida Project, probably under The Big Sick, but should have been a fringe Best Picture contender, and I don't think it got any of the buzz it should have. I think that the story was emotionally rich. I think that the animation was maybe the best animation I've seen in my entire life, maybe the best animation that's been done.
Agreed.
It was culturally relevant in a time where that is called for. It was authentic, and I thought that it was easily one of the best 11 films of the year. I had it, I believe, at number 3 or 4 on my list.
Yeah, it was my number 6 overall. I agree. It's a masterpiece as well. It's magnificent. I am a little bit surprised that it didn't catch on as big just in general. I mean, it made a decent box office, but certainly didn't set the world on fire. And that was surprising to me.
Yeah, but it's going to very safely cruise to a win in animated feature, so we can at least take solace in that.
Certainly, and I think the only other thing in that section is a kind of a 2-for-1, is A, how did Lego Batman not make Best Animated Feature? And B, how on earth is The Boss Baby an Oscar-nominated film?
It's because Lego Batman isn't as good as The Boss Baby, clearly, because the Oscars. I'm just saying. Some things are just true.
Right. Wait. Do you actually feel that way?
No, I do not.
Okay,
good. You scared me for a second. I have thoughts on why that got nominated. I believe so. They changed the rules for animated feature this year, They opened up the nominating committee to. It used to be only members of the animation branch would vote for the nominees for that category, and now they opened it up to anyone from any branch could vote on the nominations for that category. So a lot of people were wondering how would that affect things, and people were concerned would the mainstream movies, would movies that their children are big fans of influence their opinion as they go to vote? And it appears maybe it did, but I'm sure many children and many people were fans of a very mainstream movie, Lego Batman movie. So I don't exactly know how that missed. Ferdinand was another huge bust for me, not nearly as bad as Boss Baby, but I don't see why Ferdinand is Oscar worthy at all.
Ferdinand's a masterpiece compared to Boss Baby, although it's just one of those things. I think you're right on the mark there with the kids and the grandkids liking it, because Cole, my 5-year-old son, thinks that the Emoji Movie is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Gosh.
It makes no sense. I'm already disappointed in him. I've got to help him out of that stage. But I mean, you just never know.
Yeah. Have you guys seen that video going around of the Buffalo Bills celebrating when Andy Dalton beat the Ravens to get into the playoffs this year for the NFL?
It's great. Yes.
That is how I imagine the cast of Ferdinand reacting when the Boss Baby got nominated, because otherwise we'd all be mocking Ferdinand, but the Boss Baby's getting all the fire for it.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
That is very true. But yeah, like we said, Coco should very easily and very safely cruise to a win. Man, animated feature or animated film just all around was a huge bust this year.
Yeah.
What a weak year for animation.
Yeah.
Hey, one more snub, just real quick. It's not really a snub. It kind of is, though. Talking about performances here, I think Michael Stuhlbarg as the dad from Call Me by Your Name gives one of the most subtle and wonderful performances of the year. And I feel like in supporting actor that you could have replaced Richard Jenkins with him. Now, I think Richard Jenkins is great, but I think that performance really didn't get any attention at all, and I think it's great. I think it's a wonderful performance, and has maybe the best monologue of the year.
Yeah. I think he belongs in there over probably Woody Harrelson as well. I thought Woody Harrelson was great, but wasn't necessarily award-worthy in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, speaking of Stuhlbarg, I have thoughts on why he wasn't nominated, but speaking of him directly, he joined a very exclusive club. He's the 6th person this year to appear in 3 Best Picture nominees in a single year. Call Me by Your Name, The Post, and Shape of Water. He's the only person to do it in the expanded era. The last person to do it, of all people, was John C. Reilly back in 2002. So yeah. Very interesting and very, very much a fantastic actor. I wish he was recognized for it. But
he's great in that performance, I think.
And so as far as him not being nominated there, his co-star Armie Hammer also missed. And it's funny, there haven't been 2 nominees in Best Supporting Actor for the same film since 1991. And people thought almost all year that it was going to be Armie Hammer and Michael Stuhlbarg. They were going to break it. Neither one of them made it in. Then people thought it could be Richard Jenkins and Michael Shannon for The Shape of Water. Only Richard Jenkins made it in. And then instead, the dual nominees for the same film were Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson for three Billboards.
Right.
So it's a crazy year for Best Supporting Actor. That was easily the most difficult category to predict as far as nominations go. So pretty crazy. I really thought Armie Hammer was honestly going to get it in. I was pretty sure about that, and I was wrong. So there's some snubs there. Another snub for me was the Big Sick missing Best Picture and missing Best Supporting Actress for Holly Hunter. Both of those
I agree on Holly Hunter for sure, and I think the Big Sick's better than the Post. I mean, for sure. Yeah. So you can make the case. There's no doubt about it.
Still, it got Best Original Screenplay. There's still Oscar nominee Kumail Nanjiani and his wife Emily V. Gordon. So that is pretty awesome. But I do wish it had kind of cracked Best Picture.
I agree. Did you see on Twitter where Edgar Wright, the bet that he had with Kumail Nanjiani about the Brussels sprouts?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was great. Edgar Wright had a gentleman's bet with him, I guess, several months ago, that they would be nominated for The Big Sick in some fashion, and Camille evidently hates Brussels sprouts, and Edgar Wright loves them. And so they had a celebratory champagne and bowl of Brussels sprouts. And Camille tweeted, "I've never been more happy to be wrong and eat these gross Brussels sprouts." And it had pictures. It's really great. I'm very happy for that film just because it's just really great.
And for Baby Driver as well. It got 3 nominations, both sound categories and Best Editing, which it could possibly win, which is pretty awesome. I believe those are the first nominations for any Edgar Wright film.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, pretty awesome. So I love that it's given us, the Oscars have now given us a bromance between Kumail and Edgar Wright. All right, so we are going to go ahead and dive into these categories, just the major ones here, and just kind of give an overview of them and maybe see where they're landing. I already said at the top of the show that it's been a really contentious season. Honestly, until maybe 3 weeks ago, most of these categories, all the acting, picture, and director, were up for grabs. It's been a very, very confusing season, the most unstable season we've had in many, many, many years. But after the PGA, SAG, a few of these other guilds, and now these nominations, we've got some clarity on a lot of races here. So let's go ahead and dive into Best Supporting Actress. Nominees are Mary J. Blige, Allison Janney, Leslie Manville, Laurie Metcalf, and Octavia Spencer. So all season long, it's been a battle between Laurie Metcalf and Allison Janney. I honestly thought for the majority of the season, Laurie Metcalf was just going to soar to her Oscar win. She kind of won pretty much every Critics Award. Like, she swept the Critics Awards. And then we got to the Guilds and the Golden Globes, and Allison Janney has been now sweeping. She's got the Globe, the SAG, and the Critics' Choice. And so that's a pretty hard trifecta to overcome. So I believe Allison Janney takes the win here, which I think Laurie Metcalf gives the better performance, but I'm not mad that CJ Craig is gonna have an Oscar. What do you guys think?
The Jackal. Yeah, I actually, you know how I feel about Lady Bird, but one of the things that I do think is strong about Lady Bird is Metcalf's performance, but I'm probably just slightly inverse of you in that I think Janney actually deserves it. A lot of people think that her performance is just big. I personally think there's a lot of subtlety and nuance to make that character work the way that it does in I, Tonya. So for me, I'm actually okay with that.
What do you think, Britton?
Yeah, I would say the smart money's on either Metcalf or Janney. I think that Leslie Manville has an outside shot just because Phantom Thread seems to be a slow burn that is starting to get in front of more eyeballs as it goes, with it being, Daniel Day-Lewis's last film and whatnot. I think she has an outside shot, but I think the other two obviously are the front runners.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys, and I don't disagree with what you said, Chad. I think Allison Janney certainly gives a fantastic performance in I, Tonya. I'm not one of those who thinks it's bad. I just happen to prefer Metcalf.
Sure.
But
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, not gonna be mad about it. With Leslie Manville, man, I am so pissed because I had her in my predictions to get nominated for pretty much the entire season. I thought she would be the surprise nominee because she was only nominated for the BAFTA. She missed every single precursor except for the BAFTA. She's the first person to get into that category with only having a BAFTA nomination prior to getting in there. So I had her in my predictions, like I was going to be so smart and have this surprise nomination, and then I took her out the night before the Oscars. I gave up on myself, and then there she is. So
Daniel, you have to believe in you. Okay?
I didn't believe in myself.
You have to believe in you.
Anyway, okay. So Allison Janney pretty safely has Best Supporting Actress, but definitely don't discount Laurie Metcalf. She could pull it out in the end, but I don't think it's going to happen. And actually, it's a very similar case for Best Supporting Actor. Really, really similar, actually. So the nominees here are Willem Dafoe, Woody Harrelson, Richard Jenkins, Christopher Plummer, and Sam Rockwell, which let's just pause real quick. Christopher Plummer got an Oscar nomination for All the Money in the World, making him the oldest acting nominee ever, and he was cast in the role 70-something days ago.
I think that's the only reason he got nominated. I do.
It is. I mean, I'm not mad about it. Like, he gives a great performance, but I agree. There's a narrative there that pushed him to a nomination. But it is remarkable, nonetheless, that he got nominated.
It absolutely is.
And so it's a middle finger to the whole, to harassers, to Kevin Spacey. It's kind of a middle finger. So
that's right.
So as far as the category itself, just like Best Supporting Actress, it's kind of been a two-person race here between Willem Dafoe for The Florida Project and Sam Rockwell for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And just like supporting actress, Willem Dafoe swept the critics awards. He was winning every single one. And then Sam Rockwell wins the Globe, wins the SAG, wins the Critics' Choice. And so, again, that's really hard to overcome. So my money is on Sam Rockwell, who actually, despite my love for Florida Project, he does give the better performance of the two. I think he gives one of the best performances of the year by a mile, in my opinion. So I think he is very safely winning. Dafoe could, he could sneak in there. Wouldn't be a huge shock, but I think Sam Rockwell's got it.
Yeah, my heart is obviously with Dafoe just because of my love for the Florida Project, just like you said, Daniel. But my heart and my brain are with Rockwell. It's the best performance of the year. It just is. I can't deny the power of that performance.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Britton?
I think it's a toss-up for me. I would, before 2 weeks ago, probably would have leaned with Rockwell as well. I think that Rockwell's supporting actor performance is the best of the year, might be better than any of the lead actors, to be honest, in some ways. I think Dafoe's going to take it, in my opinion. I think the 3 Billboards backlash is coming, and I think it's so focused on Rockwell's character.
That's true.
That I think Dafoe ends up getting the... Also, I think there will be a lot of people who are rightfully upset that the Florida Project didn't get nominated for anything else, and this will kind of be the conciliatory pick, in there.
Sure, and I can't deny with that logic. Like I said earlier, we have 40-something days until the Oscars. That's a lot of time. And there has been lots of outrage about 3 Billboards, specifically about Sam Rockwell's character, Jason Dixon. It is a very distinct possibility that outrage... Right now, I think it's contained to kind of Twitter and kind of online, just judging from how much the Academy loved this movie. I mean, they nominated it so much. But it has plenty of time to creep into the mainstream and affect the actual outcome of the awards. I don't disagree at all. Right now, my money is on Sam Rockwell, but I can't deny the logic of Dafoe taking it. All right, we move on to Best Actress. Things get a little bit clearer. These 5 actresses were kind of the same all year round. There were no surprises in this category as far as nominations go. We have Sally Hawkins, Frances McDormand, Margot Robbie, Saoirse Ronan, and Meryl Streep. It was easy to predict those nominees. It's a little harder to predict a winner. Frances McDormand has been taking more of the precursor awards. They were a little bit spread out. Sally Hawkins won quite a few. Margot Robbie won quite a few. Saoirse won 1 or 2. Meryl Streep has not won very many, surprisingly enough, so she's kind of out. But Frances McDormand has been picking up steam. So she won the SAG, she won the Globe, she won the Critics' Choice. Just like with the other categories, my money is on Frances McDormand, but it's not as clear-cut as with Rockwell and Janney. I think I just all season long I felt like Sally Hawkins is such an Oscar-y performance. I mean, she's mute. It's such an artsy film, but Frances McDormand, who already has an Oscar, she seems to be racking up the awards and is very much beloved. So my money's on her for now.
Yeah, I agree. I think she probably will win, but if I had to pick one that I would choose that I think should win that category, because there's not a bad performance among those. Those are really magnificent performances all around. I actually would go with Sally Hawkins, I think. I think that's you're right. It's very Oscar-y, but it is also, she's playing against a creature.
Yeah.
She's mute, and she has to do a lot with just her reactions and her physical presence. So for me, I think that's the one that I think was the one that should win, but I don't think she will.
For my money, I would say either Frances McDormand or Saoirse Ronan. I have Jordan Peele as a near lock in Best Director. So because of that, I would probably go with Frances McDormand and split it up a little bit that way.
Gotcha. Spreading the wealth as far as win goes, you mean?
Yeah, in terms of, I think Greta Gerwig will probably lose Best Director, and I could see the Academy recognizing Lady Bird through Saoirse Ronan's performance in that.
Sure. That's not going to happen, possible. No matter how much Daniel wants it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen either. I agree. I'm going to fight for Lady Bird wherever I can, but
it's always Lady Bird. It's always been Lady Bird.
Yes, but I don't believe it's going to happen. But I can always dream. So we'll see. And with as far as the 3 Billboards backlash goes, I definitely don't see it affecting Frances McDormand as much as it does Sam Rockwell, because it's not directed at his character or at her character. So we'll see how that shakes out. And we move on to Best Actor. not a lot of surprises here other than the aforementioned Franco snub getting Denzel Washington in here. And so our nominees are Timothée Chalamet, Daniel Day-Lewis, Daniel Kaluuya, Gary Oldman, and Denzel Washington. And this category is pretty clear-cut. Gary Oldman has been winning everything. He's only got one nomination prior to this, and he's seen as a legend. And so this is definitely his year. It's a very transformative role, him as Winston Churchill. So, yeah, he's got it. Now, my only caveat on that is if this Me Too kind of grabs Gary Oldman, because he definitely has skeletons in his closet. He's got a lot of allegations against him, so he could certainly get caught up in that, in which case Timothée Chalamet come in and get the win, because he's solidly in number 2 for this category. Everybody else is pretty weak as far as wins go. So it's either Gary Oldman or Timothée Chalamet, but the smart money is on Oldman, because I think if he was going to get taken down, he would have already been taken down. So
yeah, and while I think that Chalamet's performance is by far the best thing about Call Me by Your Name, I actually can't get too mad about Gary Oldman's performance. It's playing Churchill in the way that he does with all the makeup and everything that he did is that's a pretty astounding feat. So even though it is certainly Oscar bait, and it's been said that Darkest Hour is just a vehicle for that performance, and that's 100% accurate, but he delivers, I think. So I couldn't get too mad if he wins.
I think definitely Gary Oldman is unquestionably the front runner. I think that I would have put 100% thought that he would have 100% won until Casey Affleck stepped down yesterday from presenting. And I think that might have re-sparked something. If that's the case, I would think it would definitely be either Chalamet or maybe Daniel Day-Lewis as a legacy award. But I think Gary Oldman is definitely the front runner.
Yeah, this is Daniel Day-Lewis's, well, so he says, final role. So, final chance for him to be the first man to win 4 Best Actor Oscars. But I don't think that's going to happen. I still think it's Oldman, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's definitely a passionate crowd for Timothée Chalamet. There's a lot of passion behind him, and he is my favorite performance of the year in any category. I think he gave the best performance. And I didn't mention he is the youngest nominee in this category since 1939. So it's the youngest. He's the youngest one in 79 years, which is pretty remarkable, and honestly, It's very well deserved.
Agree.
All right, so let's move on to Best Director. This is a bit tough to predict. We already mentioned our surprise nominee here is Paul Thomas Anderson. The other nominees were Christopher Nolan, Jordan Peele, Greta Gerwig, and Guillermo del Toro. So the Directors Guild nominees are out, and they are this exact crop, except replace Paul Thomas Anderson with Martin McDonagh. And they haven't named their winner yet, so we don't know who's going to win there. But to me, this category is pretty solidly locked for Guillermo del Toro. It's almost unquestionable. I'm about 98% sure on that. I would be very, very surprised if anybody else takes this. Only other person who could would be, honestly, Christopher Nolan, but none of these other nominees are going to touch this unless something somehow takes down Shape of Water, which I, of course, don't see happening. So, Guillermo del Toro has this category. No other nominees have a shot.
I agree that he is going to win, and I don't hate on Del Toro at all. I'm a fan of almost all of his work, even including Pacific Rim, and Pan's Labyrinth is in my opinion, is an unquestioned masterpiece. His gifting is as a visual storyteller is almost unmatched. But the man that should win this award is Christopher Nolan. Not that Dunkirk is my favorite movie of the year. It wasn't. It was my number 2 favorite film of the year. But of any movie that's ever been made that screams the best directed, Dunkirk is at the top of that list. What he is able to do with his direction related to the visceral feeling that Dunkirk gives you, for me, is just, it's breathtaking. Like, it literally took my breath away when I saw that in IMAX. So I'm a little disappointed. At the same time, I love Del Toro, so... and I think you're right, Daniel. I think he's going to win.
Have you guys seen, just out of curiosity, the Shape of Water plagiarism accusations that are breaking today from The Guardian?
Yeah, that happens every year with every big contender. It's nothing special.
That's kind of what I thought. I, have dove more into it this year than I have some of the kind of Oscar takedown campaigns before, but it was at least interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there. It could, if it takes hold, maybe it could affect things, but like I said, it happens all the time and never goes anywhere, because if they were going to make Shape of Water, they would have made Shape of Water, and it's a play, I believe, right? And, I don't think it's similar enough to warrant anything special.
No, I agree. I think my winner for director would be Get Out, or Jordan Peele, rather, sorry. I definitely think Del Toro is the front runner. I just have a weird gut feeling about Peele, but I could be wrong, and probably will be. We'll see.
Hey, there you go. Listen to your gut, man. You're wrong, but listen to it. Listen to it.
You believe in you, okay? You believe in you.
Yeah, so we'll see. The Directors Guild winner will illuminate some stuff, so we'll see. We'll see if Del Toro takes it, but I definitely suspect he will. And that moves us into our final category. I already read the nominees, but I'm going to do it one more time. We have Call Me By Your Name, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And as I've been saying this whole time, this category has been bonkers, y'all. It has been such a wild ride of what is going to win. There has never been a category, a Best Picture, as difficult to predict as this one is. Not in many, many years, and certainly not since I've been following the Oscars, which is about 10 years now. It's really tough to predict. But as the race stands now, my thoughts are, and I do not feel confident about this, but my thoughts are that Shape of Water ends up winning. It won PGA, which is a preferential ballot, just like the Oscars. So meaning it can rise above. It has enough votes to win there. 3 Billboards would have been my number 2. It is no longer my number 2 choice, only because they snubbed Martin McDonagh for Best Director. That's a big deal. That's a big snub right there. Only 3 films have ever won Best Picture without a Best Director nominee, and this ain't Argo. It doesn't have the same momentum or outrage or anything. So it's now my number 3. In number 2 position, I have Lady Bird, and I'm not biased, Chad.
Actually, to be fair, you are biased, but you may also be factually accurate.
So I think Lady Bird is my number 2 as a spoiler, because it's a film that is generally... Not generally, it's very much well-liked all across the board. I've never heard of anybody hating Lady Bird. People might prefer other movies, and they can be wrong, that's fine, but nobody hates it. And so that matters a lot when it comes to the Best Picture, because it's a preferential ballot. You don't want, on a preferential ballot, is last place votes. I can't imagine anybody listing Lady Bird last on their list. But I could see some people hating 3 Billboards and putting that last on their list. I could even see a few people doing that with Shape of Water, not nearly as much, but maybe if they couldn't handle the fish love romance there, they might just be really offended by it and put it last. So, and even Get Out, there's a lot of these that I could see having some kind of backlash or dislike. I can't see that with Lady Bird. So that's my spoiler. I think it would do very well on a preferential ballot, just like Moonlight. That's how Moonlight won. There was backlash against La La Land. Some people had it, put it at the bottom of their rankings because they thought it was a guaranteed winner, and then it wasn't. So I have Shape of Water winning with Lady Bird as a spoiler. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Lady Bird is probably going to move to the second place. I still personally think that 3 Billboards has a shot. I don't know that anything will overtake Shape of Water, which personally for me is a bummer because it's not even in my top 10. I just don't think it's that. I don't think it's one of the best movies of the year. I just don't.
I'm with you.
So that's a little disappointing in that regard. But as far as just related to the event itself, I think it's probably Shape of Water, although I am holding out hope for 3 Billboards as a dark horse.
I think I would go with kind of like you were saying, Chad. 3 Billboards to me is kind of the leader in the clubhouse to an extent. I think Lady Bird and Shape of Water both, and maybe Call Me By Your Name, all have a dark horse contender pedigree to them.
Why do you say that about Call Me By Your Name?
I just think it has a lot of buzz. I think the Chalamet performance is enough of a star-making performance that it kind of lifts the rest of the movie onto its shoulders. I've seen a lot of buzz for the Sufjan Stevens song, and obviously that ending scene is probably the best of the year. So
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. That ending scene, that final shot is easily in my top 10 favorite, final shots in any movie ever. I mean, that's amazing.
In terms of excellence, it's everything that is the opposite of the last 20 minutes of Wonder Woman for me. It's if you can engineer the reverse, it is that.
Yeah,
it is. But I think it also colors a lot of people's viewing of the entire film, and makes it a little more positive than I think they normally would, because it is undeniably one of the strongest closings to a film ever.
I agree. Lady Bird, Shape of Water, Three Billboards. I don't think Call Me by Your Name is close for a number of reasons. I think it missed out on Best Director, missed out on a few key categories there. And I just in general think Sony Pictures Classic really screwed up the release with Call Me by Your Name. I saw it back in November, but that's only because I drove to LA to see it. It just now opened wide. And by wide, I mean 800 theaters, not even truly wide. And so I think there is buzz for it. People want to see it, but they lost a lot of momentum by releasing so slowly across the country. I don't know why they did it that way.
I agree.
What's interesting, just while we're on the topic of releases, Get Out is the first film nominated for Oscars with a February release date since 1991. It's the first film nominated for Best Picture since Aaron Brockovich to be released prior to the previous year's Oscars. Get Out was released on Oscar Academy Award weekend in 2017, so pretty crazy that it was able to sustain itself all the way to nomination. But I mean, it's just that good. So we will have so many more conversations about this on episodes as we make way towards the Academy Awards. Thanks for chiming in. We want to hear from you guys. Follow us on social media, on Twitter at ScreenersCast, on Facebook, search the Screeners Podcast, and join in with us. Let us know what you're predicting for these categories. What were your snubs and your surprises? We all know I can talk about the Oscars for hours, so come and do that with me on Twitter especially. All right, with that said, we will see you next time.
And that's a wrap. You've heard what the screeners had to say. Now you be the critic. Head over to screenerspodcast.com and let us know what you think. See you next time.